Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. We will get started in just about 30 seconds. We're going to give folks a chance to log on and get their audio set up. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are going to get started in about 15 seconds. We're just going to allow some time for people to get on and get their audio set up. Thank you for being here with us today. Okay, we are going to get started. Good afternoon and welcome to the Indiana Youth Institute's webinar for today, the trauma-informed side, the human side of trauma-informed workplaces. For those who are not familiar with IYI, our mission is to improve the lives of all Indiana children by strengthening and connecting the people, organizations, and communities that are focused on kids and youth. Listed here, you can see our vision that drives the work we do for Indiana youth. Before we begin, I'm going to share a few pointers that will help you engage with today's webinar. For any technical support issues, use the chat feature to send a message and I will assist you. You can use this feature to converse with the group as well. We also encourage you to ask questions, so please use the Q&A feature for any you may have, and we will get to as many as possible. You can also upvote questions that come in if you want that one to be asked. Later today, you will receive an email with a link to complete an evaluation of this webinar, as well as the presentation slides. Please take a few minutes to let us know your thoughts about today's presentation, and if you don't receive the evaluation email, check your junk email as it may have been directed there. Once you complete the evaluation, you will be redirected to your certificate of participation. Like all of today's webinars, like all of IYI's webinars, today's will be posted on our website if you'd like to revisit a portion later or share the opportunity to listen in with partners. And with that, it is my pleasure to turn it over to our speaker today, Valshana Lucky. Valshana?
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. If you can help, I love seeing people, and the best way we can see people is to be able to see your words. So if you all can take a couple of minutes and just share a word or phrase of how are you arriving to this webinar? We'll take one minute to let people drop that in. So how are you? Oh, caffeinated. I like that. Hello, parent time group. Welcome. Watching in a group setting is really, really beautiful and connects with all of the connection that we'll be talking about. So welcome. Oh, I used to be the multitasking queen until Dr. Nancy Michael, Director of Neuroscience and Behavior at Notre Dame, taught me that, oh, wait a minute, that's not actually a thing. So if you're multitasking, just slow it down just a little bit, give your brain a little bit of break. But yes, thank you for being here with us while you have some other things going on. All right. Thank you so much for these comments. I have one more question before we dive into the presentation. And that is, what made you sign up for this particular topic? I do see someone wrote that they were interested in the topic, but to what degree? Like what part of it? Or have you been connected with the trauma-informed care journey? You're new to it. If you can share a little bit of that. So what made you interested in this topic? All of us have a lot going on, so why did you say yes to this? Oh, yes, building team through trauma-informed lens. Yes. Hot topic at work. Yeah. It's amazing to see reemergence of organizations having this conversation. I also love watching the increased interest in ACEs. Yes. HR, my undergrad was in HR and business administration. So I love having HR people in the room. I think a lot of this was actually built into when I was studying for HR many, many moons ago. We've gotten away from some of these things that I think trauma informed care invites us back into. All right. Yes, we'll give about 15 more seconds. I love seeing that help our team develop resilience, etc. We're always kind of running into this. Like we hear these words and we don't always know the connection that they have between each other. So I hope that today you'll be able to see some of that connection. And to everybody who was on kind of like that part one of what we did, a couple of months ago, you will have a refresher and thank you for joining again. All right. Again, thank you all so much for connecting in the Zoom room and in the chat. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right. So the title of today's workshop, this QR code sends you to our website if you want to go there. I'd like to stress that we are a movement, not an organization. We're a young movement, and the intention is to have a minimum of 20 years. We are in year 4. And it's really exciting to be the founding executive director for this beautiful movement. It's been really a gift to my own well-being, to that of my family and friends. And so I tell people I treat myself like a science experiment. I test out some of these things. I see, do they actually work? I always want to be a practitioner of all the things that I share and not just a teacher or a speaker on these topics. It is found, I have found that the beauty is in the living of this. So again, we are a movement. You can claim it as your own. These resources, you'll get the PDF of the slides. We will be offering in the future opportunity for you to learn some of the deeper science behind a lot of this. So that'll be coming in 2026. And we'll offer you all the slides and some supporting information. So again, today's topic is the human side of trauma-informed care workplace, and that is part 2 of our previous workshop, which we'll dive a little bit into. Now, here's the thing. When you think of the human side, just the word human, does all this come to mind? Take a second. Do you think about the care of the brain? Do you think about all the things that's going on in our body, how our organs are connected to our brain, our nervous system? So I just want to ground us in the awareness that this workshop really is about elevating. We've already talked about the why of this in a previous presentation. Now we're going to be diving into some specifics, but we cannot. We tend to do this one thing like we're self-care and we are thinking about the care of our body, and then we work, or we're writing some policy, or we're implementing a movement, or we're doing an initiative or starting a program, and we forget about this. This is on all the time. There's never a time that these organs are not online. And so that is going to be necessary to remember as we walk through today's presentation. And so just to give you an idea of what we're going to do today, we're going to do a review of creating a trauma-informed care workplace. as a retention strategy. So if you were not on that call, it'll be a beautiful refresher. I'm going to move through it pretty quickly, but it's going to have some beautiful nuggets. I did use a significant amount of time in today's presentation to go over some of what I shared so that we can be reminded of it. And for those who weren't here, that you can feel comfortable, that you have an understanding of the journey that we're on. And then we're gonna you're gonna see the difference in the previous presentation was about the why, grounding us in the thing that most people tend to forget, which is the care of yourself in this trauma-informed care journey. And then we're going to dive into some real strategies for implementation. And so I saw a couple of people that they're on this journey. And so I'm hoping that you'll appreciate the offerings that I have given in these slides, and that you can start, like when you get off the call, just start diving into it. So that's super. It's just a great opportunity. I had a good time putting this presentation together for all of us. Also, the trauma-informed care journey, I want you to understand the importance too. It is critical to building a self-healing communities movement. A lot of us spend more time at work than we do have waking hours at home. And so, man, the thought of going to work and being in a space that you have psychological safety, that your body isn't having to weather so much stress and all those things, that you can have this beautiful hum coming into the workplace, is really something that I'm hoping a lot of you all will get to experience in your lifetime. And not only is it beautiful to experience it, but to be a part of creating it for generations to come. So keep that in mind. I do want to warn you, this is a long journey. You have to be willing to do your homework and communicate with lots of people. You cannot think about creating a trauma-informed care workplace or thinking about the human side of trauma-informed care without connecting with others. And it might even require you to connect with people that you like to avoid. So again, you'll see some of the why. And then finally, I hope our time together just genuinely helps you feel this sense of a great appreciation that we have here in the movement for everything that you do to help create resilient and thriving communities. So I say, thank you so much. I know all of you all are showing up in beautiful ways that you may not even be able to recognize or share with your loved ones or people who are close, or people you see in the grocery store. They have no idea that you just help the whole family be able to not give up. Those are big things. And so again, I just want to say thank you so much. So I want to ground us in the fact that trauma-informed care and the self-healing communities model was created in response to the ACEs research. The ACEs research is so critical, and there are still so many people who haven't learned. So if you know about ACEs, share it, talk about it. Find out who are people who still haven't heard about this research. I just really want people to understand that we tend to talk about ACEs right now like it was about children. My friends, the research was on adults. Yeah, gotta pause for a second. So just remember, there's such rich research. I do encourage you to reach out to Jessica, who is the director of our Indiana ACEs Coalition, to find out about who in your community is a master trainer. They have a list, so she should be able to tell you who are master trainers, and invite them to do a 1 to 2 hour presentation to you, your family, your churches, your clubs. Um, let everybody know. That's a big part of this whole journey. Everybody knows about this important ACEs research. Okay. And then we also, on our website, we also have a video that you can Actually, it's on our YouTube channel. I'll share the link with Joshua so he can send it out. But we have a video that talks about ACEs, the research, and then self healing communities, and it gives you a beautiful connection. So, the trauma informed care journey is a four-stage process. Most of the time, when people are talking about being trauma informed and wanting to be trauma informed, they don't realize that there is this journey from trauma aware to trauma sensitive, trauma responsive, and trauma informed. So it is a journey, and this line can sometimes make you feel like it's linear, but that's not always the case. Right now, I have been invited to help people and organizations who have felt like they were trauma informed, but they're realizing some things just haven't moved forward. People are becoming disenchanted with the language of trauma informed care or trauma informed approach, and so we're bouncing back to trauma aware and trauma sensitive. IYI has asked me to do a presentation across the state called The Often Misstep on a Trauma Informed Care Journey. And I say, spoiler alert, you're the often misstep, the care of you. And so just understand this journey is necessary to realize, and don't feel bad if you got to back up a little bit. We are a social movement, and we live in the space of these last five tiers of what's called the spectrum of prevention. This is a spectrum of prevention that can be applied to anything. But when it comes to social movement, we need something that everybody is up in arms about, we're concerned about. And for us, it is ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and toxic stress. Okay, so we interchange the language of trauma and toxic stress from a neurobiological perspective, and you'll see why as we move forward. But if you're looking at these tiers today, we are doing some strengthening of individual knowledge and skills. IYI promotes community education and educating providers. This yellow section where it says fostering coalitions and networks, what we primarily do as a movement, we don't start coalitions, but we come alongside to support and show the science behind these coalitions and the benefits from a neurobiological perspective. And then that orange tier, that's what we're focusing on today, where it says changing organizational practices. And for us, the changing of organizational practices is increasing trauma informed care organizations, trauma informed care schools, trauma informed care churches, however you want, trauma informed care families. That's what I'm focusing on. I'm the middle of five girls. We have a lot of beautiful nieces and nephews, and we're incorporating a lot of what you will see here in the way that we communicate and support one another, even in our families. It's just good science. And if we can consistently show up with the care of one another, with all of the richness of this movement, of the awareness of trauma and toxic stress and adverse childhood experiences, that will be a gift to everybody. And so our goal is to educate, share, teach people how to care for themselves and others, prioritizing the care of the nervous system. And I've always said, when they first started talking to me about the nervous system, and I'm the, like, I call myself the non-scientist of a science movement. And it's because, again, they have to teach me, I have to learn, I'm able to speak about it. And I hope that I'm an example for everyone I speak to, that they can confidently do these types of presentations and learn it and live it. And I always say, but what is the nervous system? We say these words, but we don't even realize there's a whole lot that goes into the phrase nervous system. And when I see humans, I think about all this working in us all day long. We are a wonder. We are amazing. And so I say, do you realize that we have these organs in our body that naturally know how to show up for us when that sympathetic response is necessary, and able to tap into the rest and digest that parasympathetic. And trauma informed care is about helping us as employees, ourselves, our staff, our team members stay away from living in that pink area. Prolonged stress leads to poor health, mental, emotional, physical, poor health. And so these are the review slides. We have a social brain. Our brains expect to connect with one another. Our brains expect that when we come in contact with another human, that we will be in safety. We are in need of connection. And so when we are in our lifetime, we think that, we go from dependent to independent. But really, from a neurobiological, we have species expectancy. We are a species, and we have certain expectations built into us. And how we describe that, oh, dependent, now we're independent. A baby cannot survive. We're not like horses. We're not like animals who just pop out and we can go off and run and figure life out. Or once we start flying, we're on our own. No, hardwired in us is connection, the need for interdependence throughout our lifetime. And so, just like a baby, when that baby is up in arms and you go and you comfort that baby, and oxytocin and that loving inside of you then helps that baby release oxytocin and calms down our nervous system. So, when that baby gets cared for, it shuts off, it literally shuts off the sympathetic nervous system activation. We have a safety cue in our environment, caregiver. Oxytocin is released. It inhibits the stress hormone. And then the parasympathetic activation can come online, that rest and digest. That's what we also do as adults when we take those deep breaths. And there's so many different breath exercises, but the main thing you want to remember is to tap into the parasympathetic. We need the breath in to be shorter than that breath out. So a short breath in, let your breath out of your mouth, be longer. And I love humming. There's so many different things. Yesterday, I got to see Jessica present here in our area on ACEs, and she brought in the beauty of also doing that hum when you release that breath out, or humming in general. There's lots of information about this. And so here's the thing with babies, when you have a baby and that baby is talking and you're like, oh my goodness, this baby, and hi, how are you? How you doing? They call that serve and return. The baby maybe makes a sound and then you respond, serve and return. And we think we outgrow that, but that's not the case. All throughout life, we have what's called biobehavioral synchrony, the coordination of our biological behavioral processes in connection with others. And so, just like that baby responds, we respond when we can be in spaces, in workspaces where our social interactions are safe and encouraging, and we get to show up and be ourselves and thrive. And so I'm not saying I'm an HR girl at heart. I am a serious professional. I am serious about getting stuff done. So I am about business, but I've also always been about the awareness that people who are well cared for, appreciated, valued, and seen can do so much more than people who are weathering constant storms. There's a word called, I think it's synergy, where we can do more together than me by myself. That is something that I have believed since I was 17, 18 years old. I'm a lot older now. It's my birthday month. I'm so excited about getting older. And I always say I'm the youngest I'm going to ever be. But part of me enjoying this getting older is because of the vast relationships that I have. I have people in all spheres of my life that encourage and supports me showing up in the fullness. Now, I got some people who ain't really happy when I show up and the way I show up, and I got to deal with some of that stuff too. But that is not the space that I primarily spend my life in. So that helps to build resilience. So, creating that space, we're creating opportunities for people who might be facing difficulty in the workplace. They might be facing difficulty at home. They might be facing it just because of what's happening in society, y'all. But our awareness, the creation of trauma informed care organizations, means that we're creating spaces that can shut that down, help people take a little bit of a breath and move into the beauty of resilience. Resilience is not the absence of stress. It is in the presence of stress with supportive systems. We talk a lot in the movement about protective factors. Protective factors are anything that buffer against stress. And we elevate that human connection is one of the greatest protective factors. There's a lot of protective factors. Okay. The greatest we feel is safe, trusted, caring adults. Is your workplace full of safe, caring adults? Now, here's the tricky thing. We got people who say, yes, I'm safe, caring, trusted adults for the people I serve. But what about the people you work with, that you engage with on a daily basis, that you all are creating amazing organizations in the earth? Amazing that people could benefit from years from now. Are you that safe, trusted, caring adult? And so we need one another. I think someone talked about being a fan of this author. He says, this is from Body Keeps the Score. And it says, he says, social support is a biological necessity, not an option. And I'm going to read this phrase in front of us. For resilience to emerge, hardship must be coupled with a strong social support. If we want to be resilient, we must be in supportive relationships with others. Surrounding yourself with a strong social network is the foundation of of building a strong and resilient brain. My friends, doesn't that validate why our workspaces should be thinking about what we're here to talk about today? So we have the Self-Healing Communities Manual. If you go to our website, you can click it and download the manual. It talks about these definitions. It gives the definition of trauma, which I'll be showing you later. This slide I just love throwing in. It just thinks about every decision you're making to help build this resilient space, this trauma-informed care space. Having a trauma-informed care approach, you're helping to build these flourishing brains. Okay. So everything you're doing to go in this direction can be a gift to yourself and others. And I'm going to pause just for a second and see if there are any questions.
There are not currently any questions,
Okay.
but this is a good time for a reminder to use the Q&A function if you do have questions.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. We will continue. All right. So, what I'm going to share with you comes from some work we developed together with Beacon Community Impact, which is the community facing side of Beacon Health System in relationship with Dr. Nancy Michael and her students, the neuroscience and behavior major. So without this relationship, we would not exist. Beacon was the first to bring ACEs and ACEs trainer and start having master trainers training and building up everything that we're doing in our region. Self-healing communities comes out of that partnership. And what they did, they received a grant to have cohorts um throughout. I forget how long the grant was, but cohorts would come together and they literally would walk um these organizations through the process of becoming trauma informed care organizations. Okay. But it wasn't to like, okay, when you finish, now you're trauma informed, but no, giving some of the science and the practices behind it. And so I'm going to share some of those things from that. And our hope is that we're in conversation in 2026 that we will have an online version of this and then host hopefully another local version of it. And so stay tuned to some of that information if you sign up for our um, emails and things of that nature. So, trauma, we won't dive into this definition, but I wanted to add it here so that you can understand in our booklet, our Self Healing Communities manual, that again, if you click it on our website, you'll be able to download it. It gives the definition. A lot of people, there's lots of different definitions, there's lots of different traumas, which you'll see a slide that talks about that. But we have in our manual for every important definition around trauma informed care and building a self healing communities movement. Our definitions have what we call a common language definition and then a near P science definition or the background behind these words from a science perspective. And near P stands for neuroscience, epigenetics, the research of adverse childhood experiences. R is for the science of resilience. And then P has a double hit. It is for the positive childhood experiences research, as well as protective factors. So we try to have that built into each of the definitions that you'll see in the manual. And so, trauma, you can think about it as the distance between our brain's expectation and the experience. So remember I talked about we have social brains. We are hardwired from an electrical pulse to a chemical response to our nervous systems. We are hardwired for connection. Okay. So we expect that. And we expect that we will be safe. We're always scanning for, is this safe? Can I show up here? Like that's a constant part of the brain's responsibility is to keep us alive. Like, girl, don't touch that. That's hot. Last time you touched that, last time you experienced that. That's what it's always helping us with. Okay. And it's hardwired in our bodies. And so think about trauma being, I have this expectation to be cared for, this need as a species. We have a need, but then I'm having an experience. Either that experience is going to support or is going to validate that either I'm not safe or I knew this was going to happen. There's so many different things that we've experienced. And so we think about that this trauma informed care, TIC, is closing that gap between expected behavior and the experience that a person has experienced in the past or is experiencing in the moment. So the work around building trauma informed care journey is like closing that gap when you've had people who've had adverse experiences. And so there is a lot around trauma informed care. There's the 6 principles. Okay, take a second to read those. There's the 4 stages, which I've mentioned. There's the 3 T's, the 3 E's of trauma. There's all these different things, right? And SAMHSA has done a beautiful job. Trauma informed care, um, Oregon, we use a lot of their information. There's a lot of people who do this and share different things. But oftentimes, the missing link in a lot of this is the care of you, the neuroscience, the nervous system support. And so that's what we're hoping to bring alongside all of these other resources that are out there. So I hope you had a chance to take a look at this, but these are the important principles of the trauma informed care journey and being trauma informed. Okay? This is the definitions behind those pictures we just saw. And I loved when the team came up with these pages that I just pulled out from a few different manuals that we have. Okay. And so the top one, this presentation is about psychological safety. But I also think about physical safety, and the definition says staff and the people they serve feel physically and psychologically safe. The physical setting is safe, and the interpersonal interactions promote a sense of safety. Safety is defined by those being served. Okay, in this case, the workplace, the people being served are us, employees. We have organizations who have, to me, done a disservice to trauma informed care practices because they have been trauma informed for who they have served. But their policies, their supervision styles are so harmful to the people that they're working alongside. That's a mismatch, my friends. You cannot be trauma informed and treat anyone associated with your organization without creating a space of safety, care. It's not possible. You can have the certifications, you can do all the things, you can go to all the trainings, you can put all the policies in place, my friend. But if we are neglecting the care of one another, my colleague that I share the space with, that we walk in with each other, and haven't thought about organizational culture, self-healing communities, and trauma-informed care is a shift in culture. I am so grateful to have grown up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s that some of this stuff was just automatic. Even growing up in the hood, we kind of knew how to show up for one another. There's great distance. That statement of a rising tide lifts all boats. Y'all, I have always loved that phrase. Always, always, always. But I have a newfound appreciation having gone to Alaska with one of my besties. She's from Alaska, always tease, white girl from Alaska, black girl from Detroit. We have done some amazing things together. But I finally went and I got to stay the night on a sailboat. That was scary for me, let me be honest. Okay, but I've been practicing how to keep my nervous system together, so it was beautiful. But guess what, y'all? All day long, they were teaching me about the ways of Alaska. And they constantly talked about the tide. The tide comes in. That's the tide line on the side of that mountain. There's a river over there, but you can't see it because the tide, you can walk on the ground right now because the tide is out. But when the tide comes my friends, the tide came in the middle of my sleeping, and we had an alarm go off on the sailboat to let us know that we had risen 9 feet and had moved 100 feet closer to the shore. But we had docked far enough out that that wasn't a problem. But that was like, whoa. It took the awareness of a rising tide lifts all boats. We all get to go together. The harbor that the sailboat stayed in moved. It was on like these springs. Isn't that a beautiful visual of what trauma informed care can do for all of us, everyone in your community? I am all about building resilient communities. Call it whatever you want. We call it Self Healing Communities Collective Movement. You can name it whatever you want to name it. Guess what? We all benefit from it. Every one of you on this call intending to create, and I hope everybody is, this awareness, the understanding the human side of this beautiful organizational journey. Oh my goodness, everybody around us, all of us benefit from this effort. Can you tell I'm excited about it? So, what behaviors do we expect from the grown-ups in our lives? I'm a grown-up, but I still am in need of some grown-ups showing up in ways that's helping to create these 6 principles. Take a second. Let's drop it in the chat. What are some ways that you are expecting your brain, your nervous system, expects for grown-ups to show up? How do we expect grown-ups to show up in our lives? Let's just take a second and drop some things in the chat. Thank you. Consistent. Yes, we say trusted, caring, consistent adults. Sometimes I'm like, even if you just be consistent in being a trip, so I can understand how to navigate. Inconsistency can throw us off. Honesty, trustworthiness. But we have to grace. I love that. Lack of judgment. And I always say, Brene Brown talks about being intentional to always show up, trusting that people are having the best intentions for you. Now, that's been hard for me because I have faced a couple of things, but it shifted my nervous system from always kind of being on guard in certain settings to being able to have a greater peace. So thank you all for all of that. That's beautiful. And so when we think about trauma informed care journey, we're going to just look at this just for 1 second. Self-healing communities is about coming from a strength base. So when you're diving into this trauma informed care journey with your organization, please, 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 please spend time focusing on the goodness that you're bringing, even if it's just in your mission statement, in your intention, even if there's just been distance between what you all want to do, what you want to see, how you want to show up. Take out time to come from a strength based approach. Okay. That leads us into adding into this journey the trauma aware, trauma sensitive, trauma responsive for the ultimate trauma informed care organizations. The more organizations we have, we're creating protective factors. Some policies being put in place during the pandemic was so perfect for how policies that helps to build protective factors. Oh, we started being okay to let people be honest about not being okay and trying to talk about what are some ways that we can offer, some flexibility. I think about classroom settings. There were more grown-ups in the classes, for that means more protective factor for every child. The ratio between adult and children were smaller. We did so many beautiful protective factors. Things that, remember, protective factor are things that help to buffer stress. And that leads us to this resilient, building a resilient communities. Remember, self-healing communities movement, call it by any name. If these components can be present, it's all about building resilient communities. And so, sorry, this is a little fuzzy, but I could send a PDF of this and it would be a little closer. I just zoomed it in. Trauma informed care, there are 4 R's. One, we realize, I'm going to actually go to the next slide. So, it is to realize that that there's trauma. People have gone through stuff. It is a widespread thing, it's not an isolated thing. We recognize the signs and the symptoms of trauma. So that's why we spend a lot of time on educating what trauma is, how the body responds, the ways in which we can help to buffer protective factors surrounding this. Okay. And then there's a response by fully integrating knowledge of trauma informed policies, procedures, and practices. And then this is the one I love the most. We resist. We resist re traumatizing children and the adults in our lives. My friends, if you have policies where somebody knows in the workplace that somebody else is going to get fired, or they don't have the funding for it, or something's going to happen and everybody's talking about it, but nobody is talking about it, I always say all the time, that's just one example. I can give you lots of examples. There's a lot that I have weathered in my lifetime of working, things that I've seen, I've heard about. I'm also an executive coach, and I'm like, what? Why would you do that? Or why are they doing that? Humans are hardwired to be cared for. I always say it's not a problem that a decision has been made. It's the way in which the decision is rolled out, how you show up. There's a way. I watch many people say no, 2 different no's. The way you say no to a person you have no respect for, you don't feel as important, and the way you say no to the person that you value and you see as an asset, those were one of the most harmful experiences I faced. I watched the bias. And for a long time, I wanted to resist that it was a difference. I just chalked it up to somebody having a something. But it kept like showing up. I'm like, wait, how we do this? What type of culture are we establishing when we don't show the same care for all of us? Even in the hard decisions. It's not the hard decisions, it's the way in which we go about it. So, what's your culture? Okay. So these are the 4 R's. They're really, really important to dive into. Okay. I included this page also is because we got social workers here. We got people with psychology backgrounds, maybe a couple of psychiatrists, people in the legal world, people in the medical world. Trauma has a lot of words, a lot of connections. People define them in various ways. From a neurobiological perspective, we have pretty much one definition, which is why we connected with toxic stress. It's the way, and it is a little bit subjective. I have a story that happened in our family. I was in high school when it happened. My younger sister, I believe, was in elementary school. Her perspective, we talk about it now. She's in her 40s. I'm in my 50s. Her memory of that incident versus my memory of the incident, I had a more developed brain and experiences and understanding of the people who would come and show up and help us than my sister had. Man, it resonates very different. That's the same thing with the ACEs survey. It is based on your experience. We can be in the same household. Me and my sisters, we have different ACE scores. And the ACE is just to kind of help us be aware of the things that could show up in our bodies, but it's not determinative, doesn't define us. And people think a higher ACE score is worse than a smaller ACE score. People, our friends, listen, the research, the whole point of the research was to tell us adverse childhood experiences, not just the 10 that are listed. We now have enough research out here, y'all. It's the expanded ACEs. It is just to show us having lived and weathered these adversities can have an impact on our bodies, our mental well being. We now also have the positive childhood experiences, the trauma informed care data, the self healing communities model that says if we can couple these adversities with protective factors, for all humans, we can have some better outcomes. So, again, there's a lot around trauma. And these definitions, I just thought it would be important. If you're diving into building a trauma informed care organization, you should be versed in the awareness of the many types of traumas. I also love this slide because it's a deeper dive. I invite you to look at these definitions with your team, with your leaders, with your boards. I've been working on, and it has been fascinating to develop a trauma informed care board and been integrating some things. I've been a little sneak with it. They don't even know what's been happening. And next year, we're going to take a deeper dive. But these are great conversations and considerations. What I would ask you to do is to look at these slides by yourself and then see from your personal experience where you think your organization is. What have you experienced? You can take this information and then put it into a Google form or any survey platform that you have, or even written sheets for people to fill out and kind of get the feedback. Remember, I said warning is a journey. You got to take out time, you have to consider, but it's not just, and you have to talk to a lot of people. The first person you need to talk to is you. If you're on this call, you automatically are a leader of this work. You're championing your organization, your community, your families going into this direction. And then this is the other slide I love so much, which is you can dive into what are the goals of each of the stages. Okay. So this again is the human side, the intended side for you to be able to think about. Remember, we talked about the nervous system. We've talked about the ways in which our bodies respond from being in difficult spaces or being mistreated. These are some of those goals. And my HR friends in the house, I'm an HR girl at heart. Thank you for being here. We got to get back to some practices that I was educated in that we have moved away from. It's really important. Human resources is the only way we can have organizations. We need thriving, healthy humans, especially for the work and the field that we're in. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here, and let's stay connected. This QR code, this is our survey. If you could take out some time, it's a way for you to get connected. But at the top of this document, you'll see a video to our latest community announcement, which is all focused on for the next 3 years. Everything we do will be surrounding and incorporating beauty and connection. And if you are at the Kids Count Conference coming up, you will get to see me and Karina Duffy, who is in that video. And listen, she a powerhouse. I have had the fortunate opportunity of being her supervisor, mentor, friend since she was a sophomore in college. Please watch that video. Just listening to her joy of beauty and connection will give your heart some good. So thank you all for our time together. I just honor you being here and I feel very privileged. So thank you. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
And while you're doing that, the two short questions. The first is I really liked the quote you gave about resiliency as the presence of stress with supportive measures. Do you have a source for that?
Yes. So one, we have lots of them. So I really would encourage you if you can email me so I can point you to a few things. We have some podcasts that speak to it. So I'm gonna just put our email in there. Okay, what's the next one?
When employees are, quote, going through it, having bad mental health days, weeks, when does an employer step in and not give tasks to these persons, even if those employees are the only ones to give the tasks to? How do employers handle this best?
Okay, so there's a two-part response to this. One, there are HR laws. Okay, so it's really important that you keep yourself safe and you make sure that you're following the law and how to respond to this person going through. The other piece is having tasks can sometimes actually help a person going through. So it's about how are you communicating those tasks? How are you asking the person, letting them have feedback and maybe assisting with the plan and saying, okay, what do you think? And then you all together figuring it out, giving them voice in that journey. Again, I'm welcome to talk to you in a little more detail about that because that is something that I have to constantly incorporate with my team. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, great questions. And so with that, we'll just spend a minute wrapping up here. Thank you, Vilshana, for that incredibly helpful and timely presentation on trauma-informed workplaces and self-healing communities. As Vilshana mentioned, we do have our Kids Count conference coming up November 3rd and 4th. Vilshana will be presenting there, along with our keynote, Max Greenfield from New Girl. And so please consider attending that. We do have a webinar scheduled for next week, what youth serving leaders should know about certification programs, which is a very different topic from today's presentation, but still important nonetheless. You can find that webinar and other events such as Youth Worker Cafes at iyI.org/events. And finally, the best way to keep in touch with us is through our weekly update newsletter. It's the latest updates on youth issues in Indiana, professional education trainings, and organizational capacity opportunities. You can go to IYI.org/newsletters to sign up for that. And finally, as we conclude, I just want to make sure that we thank all of you for attending and participating in this presentation. We appreciate your impact, voice, and choice to learn with us today. This afternoon, you will receive an email that includes a copy of the presentation and a link to complete an evaluation of this webinar. Please take a few minutes to let us know what you thought about today's presentation. Upon completion, you will be redirected to your certificate of completion. If you don't receive the evaluation email, check your junk as it may be directed there. And so with that, we will conclude our presentation. And once again, thank you so much for showing up today and every day for Indiana youth.